Let's watch some clips of AOC with my personal favorites, the Majority Report, as she discusses different things ranging from Gaza, the committee election she lost, to the direction the Democratic Party needs to go for this next election cycle. And as someone I feel is perfect to lead the party into its next chapter, whose politics are what I think the party should embody, I thought we could line up a few of these clips and just discuss the context.
I can message on an economically populist message. And that is my intention. Of course, we are going to fight on civil rights. We're going to fight on human dignity. We're not going to let Democrats abandon our trans community. We're not going to allow Democrats to try to run skittish on civil and human rights issues. But the selling point, the most alluring point to bring the party together and to bring them over, we have to make a case of persuasion, which is that there is no other place where we are seeing promise to win back the working class, to win back Latinos, to win back young people than right here.
And she's repeating my opinion here, so of course she's right. But no, we can even see in this election where Trump won largely by fake appealing to this. He didn't necessarily say that I'll run on, or he didn't necessarily run on this economically populist message per se, but he did say Democrats are for the elites and I'll be the one to fix it for you. And the problem is, he's now backtracking already. He's already admitted, hey, I probably can't lower grocery prices. They're hard to bring down. He's saying, hey, I'm going to get us into these costly tariff trade wars that all economists agree will raise prices. Historic precedent shows us raises prices. He's appointing literal billionaires to his cabinet, some of which are already trying to shut down the government, which will cost people their wages on holidays. Clearly, for the masses, they're going to feel bamboozled, right? They're going to feel like, hey, we elected you to do this, and you didn't. Because I promise you, of the 70-something million votes he got, the overwhelming majority aren't just going to think the fact that trans girls aren't in badminton isn't enough, right? Where now if Democrats come back and focus on economic populism, what their party used to embody is supposed to embody, right? This battle for living wages, guaranteeing healthcare, affordable childcare for working class families, free higher education to give you better job opportunities, homeowner assistance, while not losing focus on defending minority groups from social issues, being defenders of women's reproductive rights. This is how we build back the constituency we had before we instead decided hyperfixating on the middle ground was the way to go for fear of being labeled as radical, I guess, but Republicans are going to do that regardless.
Tons of dark money, not just, yes, APAC, also crypto, also Wall Street, all these folks that are constantly waiting to pick us off. And so, I think that for this purpose, when we make sure that we fight like hell on the material things, I vote consistently on withholding weapons, withholding funding for offensive weapons. When it comes to some of the finer, second and third degree connections on condemning anti-Semitism, if IHRA came explicitly to the floor, I would not vote to ratify it. But I think that we need to be very strategic. We cannot swing at every single pitch because we have to build.
And this is something I try to push to progressives and leftists alike, the more left-wing constituency of the Democratic Party, the importance of coalition building, right? Probably on the ground first through just social awareness, but then in local seats in elections, state seats, federal, right? Where we have to realize we're up against the Overton window. It's not even just platforms or parties, right? Which is controlled by billionaire money that we can't match on the ground, where the rich are always spending money to shift this overall perspective in America to the right, especially on economic issues. Even those who are on the left, they always want you to have right-leaning economic framing on issues where, despite being the only country, we still think it's not normal to guarantee healthcare, right? Or our uniquely bad housing crisis is actually the homeless person's fault, despite us having 27 vacant homes for each homeless person, right? And as long as this kind of framing is what we're fighting, we're going to be getting pushback from both Republicans and liberals on that front because, again, they want this right-leaning economic framing. It's going to be an uphill battle for us to appeal to people, right? This is why we need to pick our battles and amplify our voices where we can. We shouldn't want to tango with every issue, with every song, right, so to speak. And we shouldn't tear down voices like AOC, who has great politics, great morals, and more importantly, momentum and electoral success, something that isn't wide-ranging on the left, right? And it's like, there's people who want to, as kind of a litmus test, tear down voices like hers because she gives concessions they don't agree with. She votes for an issue they don't agree with. And you have to realize, again, you're not going to swing at every pitch. You're not going to win every battle, but it's the politics that needs focused on.
And I think we have to be realistic about the political moment that we are in. There are moments where we have the juice to be bullish. And then there are moments where we need to like really strengthen foundationally and preserve. This was a tough year for us. And it's not just about big money. It's about like organizationally on the left, we are in a challenging time. Just everything that has gone on over the last year, there's a genocide that is happening. And this is rightfully been a focus of so much organizing. And it's also caused a lot of not just internal, I think, questioning, assessment, how we do things on the left.
I think this election, the left fell victim to one of the better parts of itself, honestly, where we can exist in factions. We're not like the monolith that the right is, right? Where we can now see, however, that this fails at the same time if there is not a unifying force, if there's not that connecting principle between these factions. It just leaves us divided, where the right is ready to fall in line at the snap of a finger. It doesn't matter what their personal opinion on Trump is, like Tucker Carlson, they're still going to fall in line. It doesn't matter what they said about him in the past, like J.D. Vance, they're still going to fall in line. They are ready to fall in line whenever they are asked, which gives them this air of unity that adds to their tent. Meanwhile, on the left, we have factions like organizing around the genocide in Gaza, saying, we can't vote Democrat because of this. We have factions organizing around climate change, saying, oh, Biden drills too much. Kamala supports fracking. We can't vote for Democrats because of this. I mean, you can go down the list, right? Where there was never this underlying understanding that all of these issues that you're organizing around in these factions will be a lot worse if Trump wins. So that's should probably be above all else in what we're trying to prevent. Which is why, again, I think picking our battles is of the utmost importance, but more importantly, understanding the constant battle against the Overton window. As progressives, we're against this more so even than platforms, where we need to stop it from going right whenever possible, and allowing Trump to win the election swings it further right than anything else. And it could undo decades of progress in just one election cycle, which is going to make it harder and harder to build a coalition around universal health care, right? If the general perspective in America is that healthcare isn't a right. And on the flip side of that, it would be easier to raise minimum wage if the general perspective in America is that if you work, no matter the job, you should be able to afford to live, bare minimum. So we can see how shifting the perspective alone will help us build a coalition, help us make strides. And it's why we need to view elections differently than we have been, right? This kind of like all or nothing mentality that people try to portray it as, where definitely the right does this. It's kind of more so for bragging rights from them, where, they just want to be able to say, we won, losers. But on the left, they more so try to use it as this litmus test, right? Where the analogy I like to use is to view it as like football. Between the election years is when you have the ball or you're on defense. You're either trying to make progress towards the end zone or you're trying to stop the other team from doing it, depending which party's in power, right? And the election year is like when it's 4th and long. You're right on your goal line. You can either punt the ball and get back on defense, or you can give the ball to the enemy on your goal line and they're probably going to score. Voting for Democrats in this analogy is punting the ball. Like, no, they're not perfect. No, it's not going to get us what we want. We're not getting the touchdown, right? But it keeps the opposition from scoring. It keeps the ball on that side of the field, and it allows us to run defense to prevent them from making the progress, right? It strengthens our offense, and then we can get the proverbial ball back, right? And we can get power back and start making strides again. Whereas if instead we decide to just concede, if we take a knee, right, give them the ball on the goal line, we just decide we're not going to support Democrats, we're going to let Trump win, now they can do what they're doing. They have the Senate, they have the House, they're appointing billionaires. They're probably going to get to appoint 2 more Republican Supreme Court justices. And it's like, we're giving up at this point when we shouldn't.